Okay, everyone, we are going to learn two new concepts today. Those are two very important concepts, so please take some notes. Okay, one is called atomic number, the other one is called mass number. I'm going to explain the detail and you may pause when I say you take notes. Okay, so here is a very typical periodic table. We're going to learn a lot more detail in the following weeks. Okay, so right now, just look at a typical periodic table, and you can see there totally, for this one, it's 112 elements in there, and for each one, it's labeled a number. Okay, this is number 1, number 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and there are different numbers. What does this number tell us? What does it mean? Okay, there is also another number with decimal points. What does this mean? Okay, we're going to explain it today. So, sorry, my computer freeze again. So if we take those symbol out, this is the typical symbol in the periodic table. This is for H is for hydrogen, N is for nitrogen, O is for oxygen, and for each of this square, this is the element name, this is the element symbol, and there are two numbers. Okay, this one is 1, 7, nitrogen is 7, hydrogen is 1, oxygen is 8. What does this mean is this is the number of protons. Okay, when an atom has 1 proton, it's always hydrogen. When an atom has 7 protons, it's always nitrogen. And when it has 8 protons, it's an oxygen atom. So the number of protons also is known as the atomic number. And it's very important, it determines the element. Basically, you need to know the number of protons can never change. If it change, it will change to a different elements. That would never happen in the world. Okay. So number of proton determines the element. We call it the atomic number. Where do you find it? You can find it in the periodic table in the square. Normally it's on the top left side of the symbol, but sometimes it could be different. Okay, it's just the whole number in the periodic table in each of the square. Okay, so please write this down on your notebook. Write the number of protons as the atomic number, also called the atomic number. It determines the element. Okay, here's one example. For a carbon atom, it contains, if you count those positive ones, the red color one, there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So carbon atom always have 6 protons. Otherwise, it would not be carbon. Okay. For example, this one has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. When it has one extra proton, it's not carbon anymore. It's a totally different element, which is nitrogen. Yeah, so nitrogen and carbon are totally different, even though there's only one proton difference. Yeah. So as we learned, this is a typical atomic structure. There are 3 protons and 3 electrons and 4 neutrons. Okay, so as you remember, number of protons, there is 1, 2, 3, and always equal to number of electrons in a neutral atom. Okay, so positive 3, negative 3, they cancel out. The whole atom is neutral. This is a typical lithium atom because it has 3 number of protons. You can find number 3 in the periodic table, which tell us it's a lithium. Okay, since number of protons also equal to the number of electrons, and we can say those numbers like 1 for hydrogen, 7 for nitrogen, and 8 for oxygen can also tell us the number of electrons. So it tells us the number of protons as well as number of electrons. Okay? And the number of protons determines the element. The number of protons can never change. The number of electrons could change. And eventually we're going to, excuse me, learn more. Okay, right now it's neutral, so you know the number of protons can also tell us number of electrons. The other number is called the mass number. Okay, the mass number is basically the number of neutrons plus the number of protons. If you remember, we said the mass of electrons is too small compared to the mass. The mass of electrons is too small compared to a proton and a neutron, so we don't count it. Okay, this is basically the mass number. Where do we find the mass number, which is labeled in here? As you can see, it's not a whole number. It has a few decimal points. The reason is because it's an average of different kinds of nitrogen atoms. This is the average of different kinds of oxygen atoms. We call those isotopes. We're going to learn more detail next week. So right now, you can just use those number in here to round it up. For example, 15.999, you can just change it to 16. That would give us a whole number because number of neutrons is a whole number, number of protons is a whole number. So we're just going to use a whole number for now, okay? And this one can be 16. This one can get rid of this 0.007, so it's 14. And this one is basically 1. Okay, for example, if hydrogen has number 1 over here, this tells us it has 1 proton. And this is also number 1, means the mass number is number 1. This is number 1, this is number 1. So it tells us hydrogen does not have any neutron. Hydrogen only has a proton inside the nucleus. Okay, eventually we are going to learn different kinds of hydrogen. Okay, the typical hydrogen is only have 1 proton. And the other example is nitrogen. Okay, nitrogen has 7 over here, means it has 7 protons, and this 14 over here means the mass number is 14. So we have 7 over here, 14 over here. You subtract it, you get the number of neutrons, which is also 7. Okay, so the same, here's a typical carbon atom. Carbon has, if you count the red ones, it has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So 6 number of protons, and also 6, the green ones means 6 number of neutrons, and the mass number is 6 plus 6 give us 12. So when we know the number of protons and number of neutrons, we should be able to calculate the mass number. And when we know the mass number and one of the either the proton or the neutron, we should be able to calculate the other one. Okay. So for this one, I'm going to challenge you to try to figure out this nitrogen has 7 over here and 14. We get rid of this part. Okay, right now we use the whole number. Over here, can you calculate the number of protons and number of electrons and number of neutrons? Okay, you may practice and watch the video too. Make sure to take notes for atomic number, means the number of protons. It determines the element. Write down the mass number, which is equal to the number of protons and the number of neutrons, plus add them up. Okay, and number of electrons is equal to the number of protons. Those are the 3 part you need to know. Okay, and one more thing is I want to tell you is the number of protons can never change because different element like nitrogen cannot change to oxygen. Okay, I mean at least normally it won't change. Number of electrons can change, and number of neutrons, it's not common, but it can also change during the nuclear reaction. Number of electrons can change during the chemical reaction. We're going to learn each one at a time for, in the chemistry class, probably in quarter 3. Okay, thank you for watching. I hope you have understand it, and we're going to practice more questions during the live class on Wednesday. Thank you.